Not to be outdone by NVIDIA, AMD rolled out the red carpet for AI at the Consumer Electronics Show, and it started by making some humble claims about AI.
A moment where AI is helping design a renewable energy source as powerful as the sun itself.
It's always good to be modest and stay within the laws of physics.
And I think we're moving to a world where GDP growth will itself be driven by the amount of compute that is available in a particular country, in a particular region.
See, that's the modesty we're looking for. This resonates with consumers at the Consumer Electronics Show, and it's very in touch. AMD even invited OpenAI president and dollar store Jensen Huang, Greg Brockman, to the stage.
Generations. So you see this slide that I very painstakingly put together. Actually, I did not painstakingly put it together. I asked ChatGPT to go create the slide. And so it literally did all the research, and you can see some sources at the bottom. And it actually went and read a bunch of different, AMD.
Yeah, quick question. Can AI also speak?
We actually have the opportunity in the not too distant future to have AI cure baldness. Wouldn't that be incredible?
Mankind became stupider at a frightening rate. But sadly, the greatest minds and resources were focused on conquering hair loss.
Now, before you go, I have a very fun thing for us to do.
Oh, but this whole thing has been so fun already.
This whole of government approach represents a historic mobilization of resources, tasking the Department of Energy to integrate its world-class supercomputers and data sets into a unified, closed-loop AI platform.
AMD kept its keynote light and fun by bringing out former Lindsey Graham staff and current technology policy director at the Trump administration, Michael Kratsios. He's part of the White House's direction to lead the charge to eliminate states' rights over data center construction and AI regulation, and to instead unilaterally federalize it under the lunacy that is whatever this tweet is saying.
There are 3 strategic priorities the U.S. needs to get right, as laid out in President Trump's AI action plan. The first is we need to remove barriers to innovation and accelerate research and development. We are already at work looking for regulatory roadblocks to innovation and seeing where we can update or remove them entirely.
Isn't this fun and about consumers and electronics? Thanks, Lisa.
Thanks, Steve.
No, you're from the other company previously.
Now, I would say, I think every single time I see you, you tell me you need more compute.
It's true. It's true.
It's almost like a broken record. Like you could just play the Greg wants more compute.
Ha ha ha. It's funny because he's the guy ruining prices for consumers of electronics. It's very relatable of a statement to make. I just love tech CEOs.
How many of you have had an experience that was very key to your life or the life of a loved one, whether it's in healthcare, in helping manage a newborn, in any other walk of your life?
Please clap.
And to me, that's the metric that we want to optimize.
Yes, leave it to OpenAI to talk about child management optimization.
I cannot imagine having gone through figuring out how to raise a newborn without ChatGPT.
At least they're consistent.
My theme for tonight is you ain't seen nothing yet.
I really wish we had seen everything already. In fact, the only nothing we haven't seen that I'd like to see would be the Ryzen 7 9850 XVD, which is a consumer electronic at the Consumer Electronics Show by the Consumer Technology Association that did not get a single fucking mention in the whole keynote from AMD. That's right, they announced the thing at the same time as the show, but they didn't actually announce it at or in the show. And it is a consumer electronic. I guess we'll do that part now. Before that, this video is brought to you by Thermaltake and their View 600 TG case. The View 600 TG comes in multiple different color options, like their Future Dusk colorway, a classic white or black, yellow, and a light blue and red combination. Thermaltake's View 600 TG uses an angular glass front design with heavily ventilated side intake and bottom fan mount options, plus large holes in ventilation at the back for more flow and pressure customization. The case makes for a good showcase PC with colors difficult to find elsewhere, while also providing adequate cooling options through the perforations around the case. It's also compatible with some back-connect motherboard form factors. Learn more at the link in the description below. So AMD's keynote was filled with the same level of bumbling, inane idiocy as all of the other ones that we're covering, like Intel's. The only difference is that AMD, for whatever reason, decided it was a good time at the Consumer Electronics Show to have an AI regulatory policy meeting with the White House on stage in front of everybody, scripted and rehearsed. It was really fun, to use Lisa Sue's word. Super enjoyable and entertaining, and love watching that kind of stuff. I'm sure you all do too. That's why you tune into the electronics show about government, corporate relations, and policy. So anyway, the most significant news up front was AMD's long-rumored 9850X3D, which has availability starting in the first quarter of 2026. That's right, you heard it here first, because it wasn't in their keynote. We have the specs for that. Oddly, AMD didn't mention it once, as far as we could find, in the entire on-stage presence. Instead, it prioritized all the other products that consumers can buy, like its new server rack for $50 billion data centers, and again, the policy meeting. But they had some other news too, like mobile products that have names that are decipherable with the decoder wheel. But of course, the big event for AMD was you already know where this is going. Let's just roll the clip.
Now, we have a completely packed show for you tonight, and it will come as no surprise that tonight is all about AI.
No! We'll start with AMD's most prized section first, because as we all know, the Consumer Electronics Show is all about corporate government relations and regulatory changes. And so that's what AMD spent a lot of time in its keynote talking about. And not only did they talk about it by themselves, they invited the White House Director of Science and Technology Policy, Michael Kratsios, a former intern to Lindsey Graham and former CFO for a capital management fund. That's how you know he knows about technology. Now, Wikipedia says that this guy developed AI regulatory standards, which means he must have a lot of free time on his hands. There aren't really that many of them. So he joined AMD's CEO Lisa Su because he's leading the AI Genesis mission and directing the push for elimination of states' rights over data center build-outs and consolidation of power over AI development into the federal government. So new AMD BFF Kratsios and his department's AI policies also advocate for what we previously called a mafioso-style rule over states' rights to internet subsidies if they try to regulate AI and data center development in a way the federal government doesn't like. Quote, that policy notice must provide that states with onerous AI laws identified pursuant to Section 4 of this order are ineligible for non-deployment funds to the maximum extent allowed by federal law, end quote. Isn't this fun and about consumers and electronics? If this is your speed, we have a whole video about it. The executive order also has a carve-out for data center construction that accelerates permitting and fast-tracking data center build-outs with what we think are inadequate preparation and studies. He also participated in the military-industrial side of the government, which we mentioned because that's where Jensen Huang's focus has been lately. So anyway, this guy, the former DoD guy and guy who would really prefer to get rid of obstacles like states' rights and regulations and laws for AI companies, he came to the Consumer Electronics Show. We assume it's to talk about how much he loves gaming, right?
This whole of government approach represents a historic mobilization of resources, tasking the Department of Energy to integrate its world-class supercomputers and data sets into a unified, closed-loop AI platform.
Great, the unified, closed-loop AI platform. It's what consumers have always wanted.
As a next step, we're working towards bringing even more federal resources into the Genesis mission.
Obviously, this is another huge win for consumers. Government assigning federal resources for the broke, starving AI companies. It's just really good for them. And by good for consumers, I mean good for AMD, NVIDIA, Intel, OpenAI, and Oracle, those kinds of consumers. They consume stuff too. They mostly each other's stuff, but they're still consuming stuff. Kind of like a centipede-like way with the front of one attached to the, well, you get the idea.
Can you talk about what are the biggest things that we must do to get right such that we lead in AI?
Absolutely. There are 3 strategic priorities the U.S. needs to get right as laid out in President Trump's AI action plan. The first is we need to remove barriers to innovation and accelerate research and development. We are already at work looking for regulatory roadblocks to innovation and seeing where we can update or remove them entirely. This effort will ensure the U.S. is a home for the next great technologies to be created and to be commercialized. Next, we need to get AI infrastructure and energy production right. We've taken significant actions to streamline permitting to data center construction and support all forms of energy, including advanced nuclear reactors. Looking beyond our borders, it's all about AI diplomacy and exporting American technologies to the world. The U.S. government is underway in establishing the American AI Export Program to bring American innovators and innovations to our partners and allies around the world.
All right, so anyway, this guy came to the show to, if I got this right, export AI diplomatically and advocate for use of any form of energy necessary to make sure data centers happen faster. So, I don't know, a huge wealth of oil would be pretty useful to this mission right about now. But anyway, what were we talking about again? So consumers or something stupid like that. In the collaborative AMD White House circle jerk, AMD describes its heavy involvement with the U.S. Department of Energy and its participation in the United States Genesis mission, which makes sense because eliminating regulations and building national supercomputers would benefit AMD. AMD announced plans for 2 new supercomputers, Lux, which is expected to go online this year, and Discovery, expected in 2028. And with that out of the way, I'd just like to take a moment to remind you that the 9850X3D, which is a consumer product and was announced at the same time as the show, literally was not mentioned one time in the keynote. They have a consumer electronic. It's not in here though. So I don't know. I guess they need to compete with NVIDIA somehow. NVIDIA is reserving airtime to do mutual bootlicking sessions with the government. AMD's got to play the same game or something. So anyway, they're embarrassed by the 9850X3D because it's for poors and gamers. So we're going to go over that now because someone should talk about it. They bothered to make it. So let's get into the 9850X3D. So the actual news that people care about for our audience is the 9850X3D. The AMD 9850X3D has been in the rumor mill alongside a reported dual CCD, dual V-Cache 9950X3D X2. Still not clear on if that's the name or if it's going to be a 9950X60 or something. But either way, AMD is playing 6-dimensional chess because the 9850X3D got basically zero attention anywhere except for the fact that they just happened to put a spec sheet up on their official website. We're going to go over the information that they did have. So despite its best efforts to bury any useful consumer announcements under a load of AI slop, AMD did still launch a CPU. The 9850X3D is a new Ryzen 7 part. It's listed with the expected 8 cores, 16 threads configuration, and 96 megabytes of L3 cache. The 9800X3D has the same cache capacity and core configuration, which are expected characteristics for the 9850X3D. That makes the 9850X3D's only notable change its frequency, which has a listed max advertised boost of 5.6 gigahertz against the 5.2 gigahertz max advertised boost of the 9800X3D. The base clock is the same on each at 4.7 gigahertz. AMD lists the TDP as the same, which is 120 watts. TDP is not a one-to-one for actual power consumption, but the power draw on these CPUs should be mostly comparable, just at different frequencies, given the same TDP spec in a like-for-like table. The 9850X3D will almost definitely be better bins of the 9800X3D that can run at a better spot on the volt frequency curve, typically with lower voltage needed at a given frequency target. That's what enables parts like these to exist, generally, is the binning. AMD published some first-party benchmarks. As usual, we won't read too much into these since we'll just run our own tests once it's available. AMD claims a 27% lead against the Intel 285K. We already know the 285K underperforms as compared to AMD's 50-count deficient 9800X3D, so this is neither exciting nor surprising. And it does, though, have some first-party data that points to the 9800X3D versus the 9850X3D performance differences. At the very end of the 72-page slide deck, after the footnotes, AMD shows the 9850X3D has 27% improved over the 285K, with the 9800X3D at 24% improved over the 285K. So depending on how you calculate that, this would put them within a couple percentage points of each other. Another slide shows the gains as anywhere from 2 percentage points difference in advantage over the 285K to 6 percentage points, recreating the scenario, let's say Intel's at 100 FPS in one of these esports games, then the 9850 XVD would be at 128, the 9800 XVD would be at 122. That reconstruction would have the 9850 XVD at 4.9% improved over the 9800 XVD. Using the same reconstruction with the latest releases comparison, average of 19% versus 21% improved on the 285K, that'd have the 9850 XVD as 1.7% improved on the 9800 XVD. Tom's Hardware reports that AMD disclosed a possible 7% performance improvement expectation in the 9800 XVD in some titles. The range looks to be anywhere from near margin of error to maybe 7% based on the data currently available versus the 9800 XVD. Without a price, obviously, for the 9800 XVD, which seems like not a mistake, it is hard to judge value. It may serve as a Super Series style refresh where it would enable AMD to sort of continue holding up the prices of the 9800 XVD while slotting in an opportunity for maybe an upsell to consider. It really depends on where it lands, though. The 9800 XVD currently is $470 on Newegg when we just checked. Really what you'd want to see at most for prices is like the 9800 XVD falling slightly because it's been out for a while the 9850 XVD takes its place as a refresh at most, even if it's just a couple percentage points different. That is typically how you would see this play this out if they had a competitor in the market that they're targeting with that. If AMD slots in at the rumored prices, which at least for a while had the 9850 XVD at $100 more than the 9800 XVD, so like $550 plus, then it's going to be a tough sell at a difference of margin of error to maybe 7% sometimes. So anyway, we'll obviously just have to test it. We don't know the prices yet, but kind of skating on sort of that edge of like, is it really just an XT refresh? Because we've called those a waste of sand in the past. So binning has its value, but if they just use it to blast the prices, it's not going to be worth it. So anyway, we'll look at that once that comes out. Some of the other first-party numbers included non-gaming benchmarks. For this one, the 285K leads in some of the shown scenarios, which is expected. The 9850 XVD is, again, a couple percentage points ahead of the 9800 XVD, with more of a lead shown in the office productivity task. We don't run that benchmark, but presumably it's more impacted by frequency than these other tests. This slide of 9000 series CPUs contains specs for the new 9850 XVD and existing 9800 XVD and 9950 XVD non-X2 CPUs. Unfortunately, there's no sign of the rumored 9950 XVD X2. Either it doesn't exist or it's being announced at a later date. So that was it for AMD's desktop news. That's all they had for desktop. Move over to the laptop mobile lineup now. AMD announced its latest Ryzen AI 400 series and expanded its existing Ryzen AI Max Plus lineup. AMD's AI 400 series consists of 7 new SKUs it talked about using Zen 5, RDNA 3.5, and XDNA 2 architectures. Each of these processors also lists a 15 to 54 watt CDTP or configurable TDP. They have varying 800M series graphics solutions and a 2.0 gigahertz base clock. The flagship is AMD's Ryzen AI HX. Sorry, normally we would actually just cut the incorrect read and redo it, but I'm making a point here. We'll leave the mistake in there. The flagship is AMD's Ryzen AI 9 HX 475. Great name, AMD. Keep at it. It's listed with 12 CPU cores, a max advertised 5.2 gigahertz boost clock, a 15 to 54 watt CTDP, 36 megabytes of cache, and 8533 megatransfer per second memory spec listed, 60 NPU tops, a Radeon 890M graphics solution with 16 CUs or compute units, and a 3100 megahertz boost clock listed for the 890M. On the low end of the product stack, AMD's Ryzen AI 5. We're going to leave that one in too. These are the ones we normally cut if I need to retake a name. It is the AMD Ryzen AI 5 430. Anyway, that CPU specifies 4 cores, a max advertised 4.5 gigahertz CPU boost clock, 15 to 54 watt CTDP, 12 megabytes of cache, and 8,000 megatransfer per second memory spec, 50 NPU tops, a Radeon 840M graphics solution, 4 graphics compute units, and a 2.8 gigahertz GPU boost clock. AMD's first-party benchmarks compared its Ryzen AI 9 HX 470 at 28 watts with Intel's Core Ultra 9 288V at 30 watts. I hate all of these names. AMD claims the Ryzen AI 470 2023 performed at an average of 29% faster when multitasking across a range of Microsoft Office applications, an average of 71% faster across what AMD is calling content creation benchmarks, and an average of 12% faster in gaming at 1080p low settings. The slide also boasts a multi-day battery life, and that is their direct quote. One of the many problems with these types of charts, as always, is they are all at the same event announcing new stuff, and each company only has their new stuff and not the other party's new stuff, or at least as far as we know. And so what happens is the same thing Intel did in its presentation, where they start cross-comparing generations despite new incoming generations that would compete with the stuff that's being announced, and so you end up with a chart that doesn't really mean a whole lot. So obviously each company could argue that they don't have the new things because they're not out yet, but this is why you wait for third-party reviews. Now, we don't test laptops, at least not in this capacity at the moment, but there are good laptop reviewers out there. Jared's Tech and Just Josh are both good laptop reviewers if you want to check them out if you're interested in this stuff as things launch. Legally, you actually have to have a J in your first name to be allowed to review laptops. That's why it's Jared and Josh. The AMD AI 400 CPUs will ship in standard and pro variations in the first quarter of the year. AMD also plans to bring the series to desktop in quarter 2 2026, hoping to achieve the arbitrary and pointless goal that no one cares about of first desktop Copilot Plus processor. So great, can't wait to not use it and have the inevitable either right Alt or Control key replaced with a Copilot Plus key that will never be used, just like those two keys were never used by most people. But we at least owe it to those keys to let them stay there. They've soldiered it on long enough over on the neglected dark side of the keyboard as left gets all the action. At the time of writing this, there aren't any prices or listings for the product line. AMD also added the Ryzen AI Max Plus 392 and 388 to its existing lineup. Both of these processors specify 40 GPU compute units, integrated Radeon 8060S graphics, and up to 5.0 gigahertz CPU boost clock, a 45 to 120 watt CTDP, and 50 TOPS. The Ryzen AI Max Plus 392 has 12 Zen 5 cores, a 3.2 gigahertz base clock, 76 megabytes of total cache, and the AI Max Plus 388 lists 8 Zen 5 cores, a 3.6 gigahertz base clock, and 40 megabytes of cache. AMD says these latest AI Max Plus CPUs will be sold through its notebook partners beginning first quarter 2026. There aren't any prices right now. Finally, AMD also showed off its Ryzen AI Halo solution, which is a mini PC built upon the Ryzen AI Max Plus series processors. They say it's targeting so-called AI developers, and the crowd really loved it.
Now, I would say this is pretty beautiful. Do you guys agree?
AI expects its Ryzen AI Halo, which they say is designed for local LLM type of development, to be available in second quarter 2026. But spoiler alert, it's a computer, and you can use it to do computer stuff. So it doesn't have to be local LLM development, but that doesn't make stonk go up as fast, obviously. So that's really the problem here. Now, of course, so far, we've spoken about the desktop CPU and the mobile SoCs and solutions, but all of that stuff is, it's dumb. It's for babies. It's for video games. No, now we're going to talk about what AMD actually came to CES to show.
AI.
AMD gave most of its attention to its new Helios AI Rack, which it called
The world's best AI rack. Is that beautiful or what?
the rack, designed upon the Open Rack Wide specifications that Meta submitted to the Open Compute Project, holds 18 double-wide compute trays for a total of 72 MI455X GPUs and weighs nearly 7,000 pounds.
It is actually more than 2 compact cars.
And this comparison is just another way that AMD has pushed the industry forward. Finally, moving on from the prior metrics of comparing server rack weight.
4 elephants. 1 GPU.
Each liquid-cooled compute tray includes 4 Instinct MI455X GPUs, an EPYC Venice CPU, which AMD claims doubled the memory and GPU bandwidth from its prior generation, a Pensando Vulcano 800 gigabit Ethernet AI NIC, and a Pensando Selena 400 DPU. AMD situates its 4 GPUs in a row along the backside of the tray, with the CPU located centrally along the opposite side of the tray. The Pensando Vulcano 800 gigabit NICs sit in the 2 frontmost corners, and the Selena DPU sits between the front left NIC and the EPYC Venice CPU. Each of these components is then liquid-cooled, with hoses from each. AMD said this:
Each tray is then connected with high-speed ultra accelerator link protocol tunneled over Ethernet, which enables the 72 GPUs in the rack to function as a single compute unit.
As a whole, each Helios rack offers 31 terabytes of HBM4 for the memory, 18,000 GPU CUs or compute units across the GPUs themselves, 4600 Zen 6 CPU cores across the CPUs, and what it claims is 43 terabytes per second of aggregate bandwidth. AMD plans to launch Helios later this year. If you want one, get your pre-orders in now, because if you have a $50 billion data center, you probably want to put stuff in it. I'm sure a lot of you do. So anyway, I'm glad that AMD brought this to the Consumer Electronics Show, along with NVIDIA's Vera Rubin solution that it has at the show. We detailed that in our NVIDIA keynote as well, if you want to learn about that one, I guess. As for the sort of last section for AMD stuff, it's robotics. So in what we thought would be a live demo, but wasn't, AMD and Generative Bionics, a company focused
on building humanoid robots that people can trust and accept.
Trust me.
announced Gene 1, its first human-like robot. And the company has important news about this.
Gene 1 is Italian by design.
Is it really Italian?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really know what that means, but cool. The company explained how it's different.
But basically what really sets Gene 1 apart is touch.
Gene 1's exterior allows it to feel pressure, contact, and intention, they claim. As if you weren't already sold, though, the company then details what it considers an appropriate use case for Gene 1. It says this.
Basically, a patient can hold the robot and he can feel how to help the patient in the best way. Lisa, this is not science fiction, and we're making it happen thanks to you.
That's going to be it for the keynote coverage. I think the NVIDIA one's up already, but we did Intel, NVIDIA, AMD keynotes. It was something like, I don't know, 5 or 6 hours of watching keynotes between them all. So, look, I don't want to be too presumptive and assume that you're saying,
thanks, Steve.
But you're welcome, because it was fucking torture. So, and thank you to the team who sat through them with me, because I could not have done that. I probably would have passed out a long time ago if I had to watch these all on my own. It was a struggle with NVIDIA, man. I was like actually falling asleep. There was a moment where I was just like, what is it he's trying to prove here? Just like, to steal a quote from someone who used to be in tech media, sat next to me once at one of these events. It's like he's trying to prove to investors that he's healthy or something. So anyway, that's it for the keynote coverage. We'll have other stuff coming up, hardware news, all that. Check back for that as always. You can go to store.gamersnexus.net to grab a shirt like this one and support us directly, or patreon.com/gamersnexus to help us out there as well. And subscribe for more. We'll see you all next time.